This is the land of Kangwane, Eswatini, a nation ancient in spirit, but whose scars trace the harsh path of empire resistance and rebirth. The empire came in uniforms. The resistance wore bare feet. This is not just a story of kings and courts, but of daughters, sons, laborers, and outcasts who stood between a people and their erasure. When Britain declared Swaziland a protectorate in 1903, the kingdom was already reeling from decades of territorial loss, Boer incursions, and shifting alliances. The colonial administration entrenched itself by manipulating traditional leadership and extracting labor while treating Swazi society as a resource to be commodified. The land was fragmented. Roughly 60% was alienated and redistributed to white settlers, mining speculators, and foreign companies. Swazi customary law was tolerated but subordinated to colonial economic interests. Chiefs became intermediaries, not protectors. This redefined class lines. An elite tier of loyalist chiefs and Western-educated intermediaries gained modest privileges. Meanwhile, the working poor peasant farmers, seasonal laborers, and landless squatters were plunged into deeper exploitation. Colonial taxation systems forced Swazi families to send their sons as labor migrants to South African mines. In return, families received little except absence, injury, and fragmented homes. In this silent rupture, women became the architects of community survival. They took charge of agriculture, family cohesion, and education. In rural homesteads, women such as Makosazana Fakudze organized communal labor groups Lilima to cultivate fields while organizing resistance through whispered teachings and ancestral rites. These women were custodians of both the land and memory. Schools became battlegrounds of consciousness. Mission-educated youth, especially girls, began to ask dangerous questions. Who owns the land? Why must we labor for another man's wealth? These questions created a generation of politically aware youth who challenged both colonial power and patriarchal tradition. Among them were trailblazers like Mafumulo Dlamini, a teacher and poet who circulated underground newsletters on African nationalism and women's rights. By the 1950s, anti-colonial sentiment surged. Influential figures like Dr. Ambrose Zwane, founder of the Swaziland Progressive Party, SPP, criticized both colonial rule and the monarchy's accommodation of it. The SPP was the first formal political party in Eswatini, championing multi-party democracy, land reform, and labor rights. But repression was swift. The colonial state and later the post-independence monarchy clamped down, silencing dissent through bans and intimidation. In the shadows, resistance morphed. Women like Nomkibo Dlamini and Kinafi Mamba formed underground networks that used traditional events as camouflage for political organizing. Cultural expression became coded rebellion. Young women, often trained in domestic schools, served as couriers and informants. Some were expelled for subversive behavior, others for simply refusing to remain silent. When independence came on September 6, 1968, it was wrapped in flags and ceremony, but the class contradictions endured. The British handed power primarily to the monarchy, preserving conservative structures that had served the empire well. The royal elite, bolstered by customary law and colonial concessions, formed a dominant class. Meanwhile, the voices of former miners, radical students, female organizers, and trade unionists were pushed to the margins. The liberation was negotiated, not seized. Still, the spirit of struggle did not die. It lived in the classrooms where banned pamphlets circulated. It lived in border villages where exiled freedom fighters passed. It lived in Swazi market stalls where women sang songs of defiance. These were not just witnesses of history, they were its co-authors. Today, Eswatini still wrestles with power, inequality, and voice. But the seeds sown during the long night of colonialism have taken root. To remember the struggle is to reclaim the voices of the forgotten, the barefoot girl who challenged her schoolmaster, the miner who returned with the revolution in his blood, the mother who hid a banned newspaper beneath her maize. Because freedom is not the flag you raise, it's the soil you reclaim. If we want to understand Eswatini today, We must remember the class struggles of its past and the ordinary people who dared to rise. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through Eswatini's untold history. Drop your comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as we continue to explore the stories that shaped Africa's past and future. Together, let's celebrate the legacies that define us. Until next time, stay critical and keep questioning.